Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with me today too. We are at Camilla Newspapers and Caffè, number 5. And as every Wednesday morning, I'm going to comment world news with you and focus especially on the language. Okay, so as always, remember that you can comment if you have comments on the language or on the content of the articles, and it's always welcome to receive your comments and ideas. And I hope you're going to enjoy the article that I chose for you today. So actually, I came across this topic that I'm going to tell you about thanks to some photographers that are following the protests of farmers in India. So there are different reasons why I chose to talk about this topic today. First of all, I was really struck by the photographies of these photographers, and I highly recommend that you go and check them out. Photographers that work with on the protests of farmers in India. So the work of these photographers was very strong, and I always find photography thought-provoking, and especially when it comes to social protests, because it shows to which length people are willing to go in order to defend their rights. And so this is going to be what we talk about today. In addition to that, I found it quite compelling that we should talk about this topic today, because we've been listening to people talk about essential workers during the pandemic and how the public opinion has changed when it comes to realizing what's the impact of these workers on our everyday life, on our lifestyles, how important they are to maintain it. So the timing of these protests, I think, might be linked to this general awareness too. So I want to share with you this idea of essential workers and what they're doing to defend their rights. In addition to that, as you know, India considers itself, it's considered an English-speaking country. So unlike other countries in Asia, India doesn't really have one language, okay? And so English is the only lingua franca, basically. So it's used in higher education, in bureaucracy, like in courts, for example, in corporate business. So reading newspaper articles that talk about India or are written by Indian journalists, it's an interesting way to widen your vocabulary, and listening to them is a way to widen your understanding and listening skills when it comes to global English. Actually, in India, 125 million people speak English. So it's only 10% of the population. These are the BBC data, but that's quite a lot of people. So I thought it's worth looking at that too, not only the UK and the US. So I can see lots of people saying good morning. Good morning to you too. We are going now to dive deep into our articles. You're going to see it on the screen, so you can follow me also. And as always, I'm going to comment on a few words and expressions. So the first article is taken from the Al Jazeera website. Let's have a look at the title. Indian farmers vow to intensify protests after talks fail again. So they vow, it's a formal statement made in public, that these protests are not going to finish anytime soon. Protesting farmers say there will be a nationwide strike if the government does not repeal controversial new agricultural law. So repeal is to make these laws no longer laws, okay? So to take them back, basically. And controversial is a nice word that we've met before when we were talking about the US presidential elections. It means that they cause public disagreement. So as you can see in the subtitle to the title, there is first conditional, so future on a future situation that we believe it might happen, okay? We believe it's going to happen. So if the government does not repeal controversial laws, there will be a nationwide strike. So we believe this is possible and we're expecting this to happen. It's a cause-effect situation. All right, moving on. The Indian government and protesting farmers were unable to break their deadlock in talks, with the farmers saying on Saturday they will intensify the demonstrations against new agricultural laws and continue blocking key highways on the outskirts of the capital. So the deadlock is they can't reach an agreement, basically. The two parties cannot reach an agreement. So the farmers have now reached the outskirts of the capital, New Delhi. The outskirts is the part around, okay? They've not got to the center yet. It's further from the center. And be careful, this word is uncountable. Protest leaders reject the government's offer to amend some contentious provisions of the new farm laws, which deregulate crop pricing and stuck to the demand for total repeal. So the government's offer to amend some contentious provision is what is the cause for disagreement. What is happening here is they are deregulating crop pricing. So there is not going to be a minimum price paid to the farmers for their produce, basically. So there is no minimum anymore. And of course, the farmers don't agree with that. Let's go back talking about the laws. They also announced a nationwide strike for Tuesday. They said they would intensify their agitation and occupy toll plazas across the country on the strike day if the government didn't abolish the laws. So unlike what we saw in the subtitle, the first conditional, something that is likely to happen, we believe is going to happen, here we have a second type conditional. So it's a future situation that is not necessarily going to happen, okay? It's less likely, but might still happen, talking about the future. So they would intensify the agitation if the government didn't abolish the laws. The two sides will meet for further discussion on Wednesday, so today. Thousands of farmers are protesting against reforms that they say could devastate crop prices and reduce their earnings. They have blocked highways on the outskirts of Delhi for the last 10 days. So here we have present continuous. So the protests are not over. They have started and they are keeping on going. And the journalist is highlighting the duration of this action, okay? Present perfect is often used in journalism when we talk about recently acquired new information rather than past simple. The farmers say the laws will lead the government to stop buying grain at minimum guaranteed prices and result in exploitation by corporations that will push down prices. So with this law, the government wants to remove the minimum price for the crop, for the produce, okay, agricultural products like grain or fruits and vegetables, anything. And they say that the farmers are going to widen their markets. On the other side, the farmers are worried that since they have to deal directly with the distribution corporations, they want to be able to earn what is right, what is fair. Prime Minister Modi's government insists that the reforms will benefit farmers. So insist the reforms, it's intransitive verb with a direct object. It says they will allow farmers to market their produce and boost production through private investment. So have a look at here, we have market, that's a word that we usually use as a noun, that's used as a verb. It also exists as a verb, to market their produce. And boost is increase production. But the farmers say they were never consulted. So here is the problem. They did not choose it, okay? They did not agree to this. Saturday's talks between Agriculture Minister and 35 farmer leaders were the 5th since the laws were passed in September. So they've been talking and talking and have not reached any agreement yet. And here comes a quote. We had very good discussions today and we wanted a clear solution, but it was not possible. Thomas said after almost 5 hours of discussion. We will consider all the demands they have made, and we will reach a solution. So in this article, we can see the use of will. This word has been used all over the article because there is no plan. The ideas for the future are just, not defined yet. And there are just a lot of promises being made. That's why they use will a lot. We assured them, we assured the farmers that minimum support prices for crops will stay. So here there is already a change in direction. However, the leader of Farmers Union was quoted by the DPA news agency as saying that the government offered amendments to the law, but we want them repealed. If new laws are made, they must be done with consultation with farmers' associations. So the farmers' involvement is paramount. Nothing can go to the next step unless the farmers agree to that. So that's the idea of the farmers' protests. They don't want amendments, so changes, modifications to the law. They want the law to disappear, not be taken into account, and make a new one together. The farmers are camping along at least 5 main highways on the outskirts of the National Capital Territory and have said they will not leave until the government reverses what they call the black laws. Farmers in the northern states of Punjab and Haryana have been protesting against the laws for nearly 2 months. The situation escalated last week with tens of thousands marched to New Delhi and clashed with the police on the outskirts. So here we can see how the protest is already turning into a rebellion. Farmers maintain that because they think the laws are so fundamentally flawed, okay, so they insist on the fact that the laws are incorrect, they are unfair, there is nothing to do in order to fix them, okay, to make them better. Because they were created without consultation with the farmers and pushed through the parliament, they went on to the next step without a proper vote. That nothing short of repealing the laws will do, she said. So this journalist said. So nothing short of repealing the laws will do. It means there is no fair solution except for tearing apart the laws and making a new one from scratch. They are only expecting the protests to get bigger. One of the farmers told NDTV news channel on Saturday that they were prepared to carry on with the protests until January 26th, India's Republic Day, and if needed, beyond that. We're going just to look at the last paragraph of this article that's called Growing Resentment. So the feelings are not positive, definitely. The laws add to the already existing resentment from farmers who often complain of being ignored by the government in their push for better crop prices, so to increase the minimum prices of grain, additional loan waivers and irrigation systems to guarantee water during dry spells. So the situation is the farmers want more rights. They want to have the chance to obtain more loans from banks, more money to improve their system and their technology. while the government decided to take away the minimum price of crop, which was basically the only thing they had left. With nearly 60% of the Indian population depending on agriculture for their livelihoods, so for their earning, the growing farmer rebellion has rattled Modi's administration and allies. So this protest is frightening the government and the president, because so many people depend on agriculture, both for their work and, you know, for even the farmers that don't work in agriculture, they still need to buy food from them. So it's essential. Modi and his leaders have also tried to allay, to weaken farmers' fears, okay, about the new laws, to make them calm, like, okay, it's not as bad as it looks, while dismissing their concerns as well. So they treated the concerns of the farmers as they're not that, the fear shouldn't be that big. We don't see the point of your protests. Some of his party leaders have called the farmers misguided and anti-national, a label often given to those who criticize Modi or his policies. So here we can see how this issue turns political, okay? We can see how there is going to be a propaganda against these farmers based on their political beliefs or alleged political beliefs. They are being referred as anti-national. Many opposition party leaders, activists, and even some allies of Modi's party have called the laws anti-farmer and expressed support for those protesting. So a huge part of the population, in addition to activists and part of the governors, have demonstrated their support for the farmers, because the agricultural sector is huge. Lots of people depend on it. It's 1.3 billion people work in the agricultural sector. That's an incredible amount of people that depend on this. So lots of lives are going to be affected by these laws. That's why the protests are so strong and strongly supported. I'm going just to read for you a very short piece of another article. So the title of the CNN World article is "Tens of Thousands of Farmers Swarm India's Capital to protest the regulation rules." So they invade India's capital to protest. So we have protest and protest. One is the noun and one is the verb. So protest is the verb and protest is the noun. The difference in where we put the stress tell us whether this is a verb or a noun. Okay, that's an interesting aspect of the English language, according to me. So in a bid to win over farmers, in an effort to obtain, the farmers' defeat, Modi's Hindu Nationalist Party said in its 2014 General Election Manifesto that all crop prices should be fixed at a minimum of 50% higher than the production costs. So this is what Modi said in 2014. In 2016, Modi promised to boost the country's agricultural sector with a target of doubling the income of farmers by 2022. So we can see how in the campaign, in the election campaign, Modi talked about agriculture as a sector that needs boosting. And now he's talking about taking away the minimum price. Modi and his government continue to insist they are supporting the farmers, even with these laws. He hailed the new laws, he described them as a watershed moment, so marking moment, which will ensure a complete transformation of the agriculture sector. But besides calling the move long overdue, so something that should have been done in the past, Modi has not said why he opted to introduce this measure during the pandemic. So here we have the issue of the essential workers and their needs to be protected. So this pandemic, which has caused India to suffer the first recession in decades. So the economic situation is not the best right now, of course. Toma, so this is the agriculture minister, Toma, urged farmers, tried to persuade farmers to abandon their protests and instead discuss their issues with the government, despite the fact, although so far Modi has shown no sign of capitulating the protesters' demands. So they're being invited to speak. The president doesn't want to speak about this. There is no clear view of how things are going to go on. So far, the police has just been, has just been standing aside, just as onlookers. There have not been strong clashes with the police yet. However, I invite you to keep an eye on this topic because it's something that is going to influence so many people in the world, and we will see who gets to the bottom of it. So if Modi will have the laws carry on, or if the farmers manage to have their rights protected. So these were just a couple of the articles that you can find online on this topic. Pictures are also very beautiful to look at. There's a few videos, so you can also listen to Indians talking about India in English, which is always good for you. And I hope you enjoyed today's topic, today's articles. The language that we found today when talking about protests is something that you can find in lots of other articles talking about protests in other parts of the world. I hope this was somehow useful, and thank you for being here. See you next week at 9:15 on Wednesday morning with our 6th episode. You can find the links to the articles in the comments, and thank you for spending this Wednesday morning with me. Have a nice rest of the day. See you next week. Bye.